In this tutorial, we will cover how to use various layout components available for analytical apps. Layout components are those that the user will not interact with, but instead help structure and organize analytical apps. Layout components make analytical apps easier to understand and properly use, and faster to assemble and deploy. To start with here, we have an empty analytical app, where we have done some of the early configuration stages. If you want to learn how to do some of these basics, take a look at our older videos. To start with, we need to enter into one of our stages. For this, we'll enter into a parameter type stage here that is completely empty. For this tutorial, we will not be looking at the general components, but we will be looking at the layout components, which are in the second tab on the left-hand side menu. To begin with, we'll go over columns. Columns allow us to add multiple different types of components within them and on the same page. Here we have the option to name it, we have the option to change the size, and we have the option to add additional components. If we configure these to have various sizes and to add an additional column, we can see it looks like this, with a smaller, then a larger, then a smaller column. Now we can drag components, such as the general components, into each of these columns. In this way, we can add multiple components into the same line within one single stage. Many of the layout components allow us to do just this, to add multiple components within each other, nesting them together to provide a more complex and structured stage. Next, we will go over the panel layout. The panel layout doesn't allow us to nest or to add other components within it, but instead allows us to add labeling and information. In this case, we can also add a title, and we can add information to a tooltip for the user to see additional information. We also have various other options, such as to make the panel collapsible. We can also make it initially collapsed. In this case, you can see in the preview that the panel will start like this. However, if the user wishes to, they can extend the panel here. We also have the option to add a theme here. A theme is essentially the top color here on the beginning of the panel. This can help label and help the users visually identify which panels are important or which maybe need to be configured. Next, we'll go over the table. The table is much like the columns, except it allows us to add components vertically as well as horizontally. First, we can add a label, and next we can change the number of rows and columns. For example, we will go with 5 rows and 5 columns. We also have additional options here at the bottom that provide more layout options and ways to modify our columns. Here you can see this is what a 5x5 table would be like, and we can add different components to each of these sections of the table. This can allow us to add a lot of information to a single stage while adding structure to the stage. Next, we will go over tabs. Tabs help us add components and help hide others at the same time. For example, here we can add a label, and then we can add additional tabs here. If we save this, we can see what it would look like. Here we can add components, just as we would with an empty stage, but the user also has the option to go to different tabs. It is important to note that while this may initially look similar to how stages are, in this case, this is all happening within a single stage. The user can also switch between the tabs without requiring navigation buttons. So this can be a good way to compress a simple analytical app into a single stage rather than spacing it over multiple stages. Next in the layouts, we'll go over the well. The well is very simple. It is simply providing a border and labeling to our fields and to our various other components. This can just be good for visual interest and to better organize and label our different components. Thank you for listening.